Okay, so barefoot shoes. There's a ton of buzz around this whole minimalist footwear thing, but,
Yeah.
you know, also some question marks,
Right.
right?
For sure.
And you're here, so you're obviously interested enough to dive in with us, and I'm guessing you've heard some of the rumors too, maybe even some myths.
Definitely.
Today we're ditching the marketing hype and looking at the science and real-world experiences.
Yeah, get ready to see your feet in a whole new light. It's time to separate fact from fiction. We've got some great sources to guide us today, including this recent article from Bear Tread called Barefoot Shoes, Myths versus Facts. And we'll be unpacking some other common misconceptions people have about minimalist footwear.
Perfect. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, the basic idea here is to mimic that natural foot movement you get, well, when you're actually like barefoot. But don't worry, we're not talking about ditching shoes altogether and,
Yeah.
embracing a life of stubbed toes and
No,
everything.
no, not unless you want to. But yeah, you're right. Barefoot shoes aren't about going completely unshod. They're designed to provide protection while still allowing your feet to move and feel the ground in a way that traditional shoes just don't allow.
Exactly. And that leads us to myth number one, which is that barefoot shoes offer zero protection. And I'll admit, when I first saw those thin, flexible soles, I was picturing every sharp rock and stray Lego out to get me. It's a pretty common concern, right?
Totally. And it's totally understandable. We're just so used to equating thick soles with, protection.
Yeah.
But honestly, a lot of barefoot shoe companies are using some really tough materials in their soles these days, like TPU or super abrasion-resistant rubber. Think of it like those puncture-resistant tires you get on a bike, but for your feet. So you're
Yeah.
still getting that ground feel, but with an added layer of defense against those hazards.
Okay, so you're telling me I can rock these bad boys on a hiking trail and not end up with a foot full of thorns?
Yeah.
That's kind of impressive, honestly, but what about all the other times I'm not out conquering nature? Which brings us to myth number two. Barefoot shoes are only for running.
Right, because you can't possibly wear a shoe that lets your foot move naturally unless you're logging miles,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. You practically laughed in my face when I told you I was thinking about wearing my barefoot dress shoes to a wedding.
Okay, well, maybe I chuckled a little bit.
Yeah.
But honestly, the versatility of barefoot shoes is something I think people really miss. Like the market has just exploded with options, dress shoes, casual shoes, hiking boots, you name it. It's more about the design philosophy than a specific activity.
So it's less about what you're doing and more about letting your feet just kind of do their thing regardless of the situation. But speaking of doing their thing, doesn't letting your feet go wild after a lifetime of, support and cushion lead to problems? Myth number three, barefoot shoes equal injuries.
It's a really valid concern, especially when you consider that many of us have spent years, if not decades, in shoes that just restrict our foot's natural movement. Imagine wearing a cast for months and then immediately trying to run a marathon.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. Your muscles wouldn't be ready for that kind of stress. It's the same with our feet. Those intrinsic foot muscles, the ones that are responsible for supporting your arches, helping you balance, absorbing shock the life from, they haven't been getting a real workout in traditional shoes.
So it's like taking those muscles straight from the couch to a marathon. No wonder people are worried about injuries.
Exactly. Suddenly, switching to barefoot shoes without giving those muscles time to adapt is a recipe for disaster. I mean, it's like asking your bicep to lift 100 pounds after years of doing nothing but holding a coffee cup.
So we're talking baby steps here, not marathons. Gotcha. I need those couch potato muscles to get a bit of a pregame warm-up before we hit the ground running. Pun intended.
Exactly. Start slow, listen to your body, and gradually increase your barefoot time as your feet adapt. And remember, we're not just talking about, running here.
Right. I was just about to say, it's not like I'm hitting the trails every day. What about just incorporating them into my daily routine?
Yeah, that's a great way to start. Think about wearing them around the house, on your commute, even to the grocery store. As those intrinsic muscles get stronger, you'll be able to handle, more challenging terrain and longer durations.
And speaking of those muscles, that brings us perfectly to myth number four. Barefoot shoes lack arch support. It's like people think our feet are just going to collapse without those built-in scaffolding systems.
It's a super common misconception. We've just become so accustomed to external support that we've forgotten our feet are actually designed to support themselves.
Wait, what? You're telling me I've got built-in arch support that I've been totally ignoring this whole time?
Yeah, you got it. Think about it this way. Your foot has over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments,
Yeah.
all working together to provide dynamic, flexible support. Muscles like your plantar fascia, tibialis posterior, peroneals, they're like the unsung heroes of your feet, working tirelessly to keep those arches lifted and stable. But if we never give them a chance to actually do their job, they become weak and deconditioned. It's like, never using your arm muscles. They'd eventually atrophy, right?
Wow. So by relying on arch supports, we're essentially telling those muscles to take a permanent vacation.
Pretty much.
No wonder they get cranky when we ask them to actually, like, work. But seriously, are you saying that ditching those supports could actually strengthen my arches?
I am. Of course, I'm not suggesting everyone throws away their orthotics overnight,
Hmm.
especially if you have, specific medical conditions. But for a lot of people, those supportive devices are masking an underlying weakness. It's like constantly using crutches. Eventually, your leg muscles are going to weaken from lack of use.
It's all starting to make sense now. By allowing our feet to move naturally, we're essentially giving those muscles a much-needed wake-up call. So it's not just about the type of shoe, it's about retraining our feet to move the way they were, designed to. But I bet some people out there are thinking this whole barefoot thing is just a passing trend. Which brings us to myth number 5. Barefoot shoes are just a fad.
Honestly, if anything deserves the fad label, it's the modern, heavily cushioned shoe. Humans have been walking and running barefoot for millennia.
Yeah, our ancestors weren't exactly rocking the latest Nike Airs, were they?
Nope. And, as with a lot of things in health and wellness, what's old is becoming new again. The barefoot movement is supported by a growing body of research exploring the biomechanics of natural movement and the benefits of minimalist footwear.
So not a fad, more like a rediscovery of our kind of innate ability to move efficiently and hopefully injury-free. But what about people who think their feet are, well, not exactly perfect for this? Which brings us to myth number 6. Barefoot shoes are only for people with perfect feet.
Here's the thing, whose feet are actually perfect. We all have our quirks and variations. That's the beauty of barefoot shoes. They allow your feet to function as they're meant to, regardless of, shape or size.
So if you've got flat feet, high arches, bunions, you name it, barefoot shoes might be the solution, not the problem.
You got it. By allowing your feet to move naturally, you're giving them the freedom to strengthen and potentially even correct some of those issues over time. Of course, if you have pre-existing foot conditions, it's always wise to consult with a podiatrist or physical therapist who understands barefoot movement.
Yeah, always good to get that personalized advice. But I love that you're challenging that whole perfect feet myth. Our feet are amazingly adaptable, and we shouldn't underestimate their ability to, like, heal and thrive when we give them the chance. Okay, last myth before we move on to the really good stuff. The benefits of all this barefoot goodness. Myth number 7. Barefoot shoes are expensive and don't last very long. This one feels pretty real when you're staring down some of those price tags.
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid concern. High-quality footwear often comes with a higher price tag. However, remember that barefoot shoes are built differently. They're intentionally minimalist, with fewer components that can break down. And a lot of brands are using incredibly durable materials that are designed to withstand wear and tear.
That's so true. I was hesitant at first because of the price, but I've had my current pair for ages, and they're still going strong. Way longer than some of those traditional running shoes I used to go through.
Yeah, it's an investment in your foot health, which is priceless. And when you consider the potential long-term savings, it makes even more sense. Think about it. Reduced risk of injuries, potentially needing fewer orthotics or like podiatrist visits. Those costs add up.
Okay, you've convinced me.
Yeah.
But enough about the myths and the money. Let's talk about the good stuff. Why ditch those, like, comfy cushioned shoes in the first place?
Because the benefits go way beyond just your feet. It's about reclaiming a more natural way of moving and, experiencing the world.
Now you're speaking my language. Give me all the benefits. All right, so let's dive into those benefits. I am ready to be amazed.
Get ready, because we're talking about a whole body transformation starting with, you guessed it, your feet.
Okay, yeah, improved foot health, that's a given. But what does that actually look like in real life?
Picture this. Stronger arches, healthier toes, better circulation. You're essentially like hitting the reset button on your feet, allowing them to function as they were designed to.
No more cramming them into shoes that are practically shaped like, medieval torture devices.
Exactly. And by addressing the root cause of a lot of these common foot problems, we often see a reduction in issues like plantar fasciitis, bunions, even those pesky ingrown toenails.
So not just treating the symptoms, but potentially preventing them in the first place.
Right.
I like the sound of that. But what about the rest of the body? You mentioned something about a whole body transformation.
Absolutely. Remember those intrinsic foot muscles we talked about?
Yeah.
They're like your body's built-in sensors constantly sending information to your brain about your environment and how your body is positioned.
Okay. It's giving me Spidey sense vibes.
Exactly. We call this enhanced proprioception, and it plays a really crucial role in your balance, coordination, even your posture. When your feet can sense the ground better, your brain can react more quickly and efficiently to keep you upright and stable.
That makes so much sense. I've always struggled with balance. Maybe my feet just haven't been getting the memo.
It's definitely worth considering. And, think about it. Improved posture can have a ripple effect throughout your entire body.
Like how?
Well, it can reduce strain on your back, improve your breathing, even aid in digestion.
Wow. I never realized how connected, everything is.
Well,
It's like a chain reaction starting with your feet. Okay, you've sold me on the whole body benefits, but what about the mental and emotional side of things? Is there a connection there too?
absolutely. There's something incredibly grounding about feeling the earth beneath your feet. It's almost meditative.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel calmer already just thinking about it.
It's that connection to nature that can have a really profound impact on our overall well-being. And let's not forget the simple joy of, feeling comfortable in your own skin, or should I say shoes. There's a certain freedom that comes with ditching those constricting shoes and letting your feet breathe.
You're speaking my language. I am all about that freedom and comfort. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from myth busting to muscle strengthening to even a little meditation. But I know some folks are probably thinking, okay, I'm on board with this whole barefoot thing, but I have a closet full of perfectly good shoes. What am I supposed to do with those?
Don't worry. Transitioning to barefoot shoes doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing proposition. You don't need to, toss out your entire shoe collection.
So I can still rock my stylish boots on occasion.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works for you, your lifestyle, and your feet. Start by incorporating barefoot shoes gradually into your routine. Maybe you wear them around the house for a bit each day, then gradually increase the time and intensity as you feel comfortable.
It's like dipping your toes into the barefoot world before taking the full plunge.
Exactly. And remember, every step you take in barefoot shoes is a step towards, stronger, healthier feet.
And a more grounded, connected way of moving through the world. It's incredible how something as simple as, changing our shoes can have such a ripple effect on our lives.
It's really about tapping into our body's natural design and rediscovering the joy of movement.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are ready to, embrace the barefoot lifestyle?
Remember, it's a journey, not a race.
Yeah.
Listen to your body, be patient, and don't be afraid to experiment to find what works best for you. There are so many great resources out there to guide you, from shoe reviews to expert advice, and most importantly, have fun with it.
I love that. This has been incredibly eye-opening. I feel like I'm seeing my feet and honestly, my whole body in a whole new light. Thanks for joining me on this barefoot adventure.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, keep those feet happy, keep them moving, and keep exploring the world one barefoot step at a time.
And on that note, we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into a topic that's sure to get you thinking differently. Until then, happy trails.